Five or Flop, a podcast for the best and worst historical fiction has to offer. I'm your host, Grace.
And I'm Erin, and each week we'll be reading a different historical fiction book to see if they're a five or a flop.
Our Season 2 theme is Booktok and Bestsellers, and this week we're reading The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich.
Grace, what's new with you? For the audience's note, it's been quite a long time since we've recorded, and also quite a long time since Grace and I have seen each other, which is unusual because I usually see her about 3 times a week.
Yeah, but no, we have been on like an extended break from in-person seeing each other, and that means an extended break from recording. So honestly, this is the most exciting part of my week.
I know. I was like looking forward to it.
Yeah, but part of that reason I didn't see you is because your trip to Madrid fell like in the middle of it. So how was Madrid?
God. Yeah, so Madrid highlights. It's funny because by the time this comes out, currently I got back from Madrid 2 weeks ago. So by the time this comes out, it's going to be like 2 months.
Well, also, I was just recording. It was either Romancing Mr. Bridgerton or Half of a Yellow Sun. And you were telling us that you were planning your trip to Madrid.
Oh, so that was a while ago.
And you said, I'm not sure if this episode will be out or not by the time I get back from my trip. And I think so.
It is.
Yes.
Well, Madrid was amazing. Food, Tinto de Verano, which I think Santiago's made for you before. It's like a wine drink, but with also soda. Ooh, it's really good.
Yes.
Amazing. We were in Valencia for like a day and a half. We should have done longer in Valencia. So note to future self and our listeners, Valencia is amazing and give yourself the amount of time there. We also had the Hostel from Hell. Because we went to one specifically because it said it had a bar crawl and nightlife and all this, and we wanted that. It was only old people there. So I believe I said on that episode that we were flying in and then immediately doing a bar crawl. Well, we couldn't because it was only old people there.
That's very sad. Did you attempt your own bar crawl?
We went to like a couple different places, but like we wanted to like meet other people. So then we were looking online for one and we're like, these are all a little sketchy. We wound up not doing it. But it was incredible. I loved it. Can I give a second highlight for the week?
Yes, of course.
This is something else I've been leading up to on the pod. I finally ran my 10K on Sunday.
Yay!
Was my time good? No, I did not hit my goal time. My goal time was already 13:30 minute mile, which if you run, you know this is very bad. I didn't hit that. However, I did fuck up my ankle.
I was going to say, you have an injury.
I did. I have always had very, very terribly weak ankles and like grew up with crippling ankle pain. And there was one part of the track where it was like flooded and we had to go up on the grass and I landed like slightly funny. And now I finished the race crying. I am in a lot of pain and I'm going to the foot doctor on Friday.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you have an appointment at least.
Yeah, no, I wanted to make one because also me and my mom are going to New York next weekend and I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to be walking so much. Like, I better be able to do it.
You have had bad luck because before you left for Madrid, you also had a problem like with your sinuses.
Oh my God, my sinus infection, but the worst symptom in the world where sometimes you get teeth pain from sinus infection, but for some reason my entire mouth was so swollen I couldn't eat anything for about a week straight.
That's very sad.
Yeah, I've had a bad run of things. Anyways, what's new with you? Just back to recording? That's your excitement. That's what you I'm sorry, that sounded mean. On the note sheet for highlights for the week, Grace does have back to recording.
I know. I have finally gotten on the calendar a date for data scientist Ashley to help me hang up all of my wall art.
Oh my God. Notoriously, Ashley has been making plans to leave the house, as Grace has said, to not help her.
For a while, she had to pull some extra time at work. Like, her boss was away and she had to cover. Fine, I'm not going to ask you to do manual labor for me when you're pulling like an 11-hour day every day, 6 days in a row.
And she works at a hardware store, so she's like on her
doing manual labor is job.
It's not like us sitting at a desk all day.
No. But then last week, I said, Ashley, on Saturday, will you help me hang up my wall art? And listen, I understand the counter argument. You're a grown woman, do it yourself. But I just am worried about things falling on me. So I just I need help. And she said, I can't on Saturday. I'm going to a concert. Understandable. I said, okay, how about Friday? Can you help me then? And she said, I'm going to a different concert on Friday.
To be fair, that was Hosier, so worth it.
To avoid me.
And then she avoided you on Wednesday because we got drinks that day.
Because we made plans to do something else. But no, I'm finally getting that done.
Good.
I am not in my running mode like you are, but I have made a pact with our other friend, Kat, your former roommate, and we do like a hot girl walk once or twice a week.
And I actually saw them one day coming by my building.
We walked in Rock Creek Park, so there were a lot of bugs, and we did get lost briefly, but we did also get to see some horses. So it was a very special occasion.
So overall win?
Overall win. Plus, I'm getting my steps in, which that
Always
I'm
good.
not. Like last Saturday, I was not feeling well, and my step count for the day was 156. So, because I didn't leave the house.
That's the one thing about having a dog. Like, I at least hit 1,500 every day.
Minimum,
because I have no choice.
It'd be more if you had a bigger dog.
Oh, no.
Flynn is quite small.
She does not require much time outside.
Yeah.
I take her, like, halfway around the block, and then she goes in and goes to sleep.
Perk of the small dog.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Are you reading anything good recently?
I read a book by, I think I've mentioned this on the pod before, but my favorite author is Emma Donoghue.
Oh, of course.
Yes. So I read one of Emma Donoghue's books that I started when I was in like high school-ish, and I put it down and never finished it. Mm-hmm. And I came back to it and I finally read it. It's her book called The Sealed Letter.
Okay.
And she writes some contemporary fiction. I would say it's like 75-25 historical contemporary. All of the historical ones are based on like super niche things that you've never heard of, basically. Yeah. And this was about a 1860s divorce case where one of the people they called upon, it was like the main couple, and then the wife had this friend who was an old spinster who notoriously fought for women's rights. So like obviously like gay coded people. You never know if you don't want to assign a sexuality to someone, but gay coded. So that was very good. I can see why I didn't like it when I was younger because it's a very like subtle kind of story.
Okay.
But I love Emma Donoghue and I love her writing, so I enjoyed getting back to this one.
So it's probably not an intro to Emma Donoghue book.
No, I would say she's most well known for her contemporary because her most famous book is Room. People might not know the name Emma Donoghue off of their head, but Room. Like it was a huge smash. It got made into the movie with Brie Larson, won Oscars, blah, blah, blah. If you're looking for an intro to the historical Emma Donoghue, I would say go with my favorite, which is The Wonder.
That's the one I read.
Yes.
I did like that book.
Don't watch the movie. What about you? What are you reading?
It's funny you ask that because I actually yesterday finished a book by the same author that we're discussing today.
Ooh, you are so ahead of the curve on the multiple pod author readings.
You can't defeat me.
No, I literally can't. I still have not read another. I own a couple of books from pod authors to repeat, but I still haven't read any of them.
You can't defeat me. The funny thing is, spoiler, hated The Night Watchman. Loved Future Home of the Living God. Because apparently Future Home of the Living God is like a huge depart from like her usual books and writing style.
Oh.
And I loved it. It was very dystopian, like kind of Handmaid's Tale type of book. It's basically like the process of evolution starts randomly for no reason, like moving backwards. And just like completely randomly and sporadically. So they're trying to like
figure out why.
Detain all the pregnant women to like see if they're going to have a normal birth and then make them into like a birthing farm type of thing.
Aww.
It's really crazy. It's also very short. I read it very quickly because unfortunately I'm now a hybrid worker. I lost my remote privilege. I found that out when I was in Madrid, aka the best part of my job. So now, instead of taking Zoom calls from my house all day, I commute an hour and a half and take Zoom calls from an office all day. So that's great. However, I do get to read on the metro.
Well, that is not good for employee morale, but it is good for the podcast for you to read more other pod authors.
It is. And I really liked Future Home of the Living God, so I probably will make some comparisons.
And when I saw your Storygraph rating that you gave The Night Watchman a lower rating and this other book a higher one, I was not surprised because I have my copy of The Night Watchman right here. In the back, there's the, also by Louise Erdrich, as you see with every book, and she has a ton of stuff.
Yeah, so she has a lot of books.
So I'm not surprised that just the more you write, the more likely it is that results may vary.
I think that's actually a good example of you can like something by an author and hate something else by the author. I don't think that's a bad thing, and I don't think that's a commentary on this author's writing at all.
So should we go into the synopsis of The Night Watchman?
Yes. I will start by reading the synopsis, and actually, unfortunately, this is a very long one. It's not one of our short, snappy ones.
Dang, okay.
Thomas Wachkish is the night watchman at the Jewel Bearing Plant, the first factory located near the Turtle Mountain Reservation in rural North Dakota. He is also a Chippewa council member who is trying to understand the consequences of a new, quotation marks, emancipation bill on the way to the floor of the United States Congress. It is 1953, and he and the other council members know the bill isn't about freedom. Congress is fed up with Indians. The bill is a, quotation mark, termination that threatens the rights of Native Americans to their land and their very identity. How can the government abandon treaties made in good faith with Native Americans, quote, for as long as the grasses shall grow and the rivers run? Since graduating high school, Pixie Partenow has insisted that everyone calls her Patrice. I will be calling her Pixie in this episode. Unlike most of the girls on the reservation, Patrice, the class valedictorian, just like me, has no desire to wear herself down with a husband and kids. She makes jewel bearings at the plant, a job that barely pays her enough to support her mother and brother. Patrice's shameful alcoholic father returns home sporadically to terrorize his wife and children and bully her for money. But Patrice needs every penny to follow her beloved older sister, Vera, who moved to the big city of Minneapolis. Vera may have disappeared. She hasn't been in touch in months and is rumored to have had a baby. Determined to find Vera and her child, Patrice makes a fateful trip to Minnesota that introduces her to unexpected forms of exploitation and violence and endangers her life. Thomas and Patrice live in this impoverished reservation community along with young Chippewa boxer Wood Mountain and his mother, Juggy Blue, her niece, and Patrice's best friend, Valentine, and Stack Barnes, the white high school math teacher and boxing coach who is hopelessly in love with Patrice. There was also another paragraph to the synopsis that I just cut out of here.
Was it one of those ones that's like, in this spellbinding novella of beautiful prose?
Yeah, I was like, we don't need this.
Yeah, the one that we found for Song of Achilles, and then we were like, we need another one because this gives us nothing.
Yeah, basically. It was, but this gives, for as long as it is, I don't think it gives that much insight into what actually happens.
Well, I will say it has given me a piece of information that I did not even glean from reading the whole book, which is that Barnes's first name is Stack. I did not know that.
I didn't know that. They just call him Barnes the whole time.
Which, honestly, I would not really love to go by my name if it was Stack. But, I'm not a man in the 1950s.
That's true. I feel like that name kind of would have ate as a man in the 1950s.
I was going to say, probably he loved it.
Anyways, so let's get into the author. As we've already said, she's written a shit ton of books. Her principal subject being on the Chippewa Native Americans or the Ojibwe tribe, which is, I believe, the same, just two different names. So you may hear us use that interchangeably. That tribe is in the Midwest, and that's her heritage, I believe, through her mother's side. And the focus of a lot of her books are how Native American communities are shaped by contact with white communities. You know, we see that through the alcoholism, the political aspects, and a lot of other, interpersonal subject matters in this book that we'll get into.
All bad.
Yes, all bad. This book was inspired by her maternal grandfather, so the character of Thomas was basically who her grandfather was, and I think there was a section at the end of the novel that talked about that as well.
Yes.
So that is going to put an interesting spin on our historical accuracy, kind of like in the way of Violetta when a lot was inspired by her family members.
I forgot about that.
This book did win a Pulitzer Prize.
Which is crazy. I did not know that until, I finished reading it. I read the whole thing. I don't know. And it won it relatively recently. It came out.
Because it's a new book. It's 21 it came out?
Yeah. And so I don't know how that went over my head. I was a fully grown adult who was, living in the world in 2021. Good for Louise.
Something I found about all of her books is there's kind of a consensus in the literary world that her books are really notable for depths of characterization.
Okay.
Which I do see in this book. I have my qualms about this book, but I think the characterization is very strong.
Yeah.
So in 2015, she won the Library of Congress Prize for American Fiction, which is quite a big award. She also co-owns a bookstore in Minneapolis with her sister known as Birch Bark Books. So,
I love that. I love the trend of authors who own bookstores.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like I keep hearing about it more and more. Anne Patchett has a bookstore. Judy Blume has a bookstore.
I want to go to the Judy Blume bookstore.
I know. It's in Key West, too. So it's a tourist destination.
Okay, when we get sponsored on the pod and we can pay for travel.
And we can go to the Judy Blume bookstore.
Roping back around, I found a really great quote from this author. Contemporary Native American writers have therefore a task quite different than that of other writers. They must tell the stories of contemporary survivors while protecting and celebrating the cores of cultures left in the wake of the catastrophe.
Wow.
And I think this sums it up beautifully. And even in Future Home of the Living God, the main character was of Native American heritage, even though it's this dystopian book and the themes aren't quite as central as it is in a historical fiction, they're still very present. And I like that a lot.
Well, she knows what she's about, and she has a theme, and she goes with it, and she's written a lot of books with it, and she's been successful. So, amazing Louise Erdrich, we stan.
Yeah. We know what else I've read by her. Grace, have you read anything else by her / have familiarity?
I actually haven't. I'm not very familiar with her other than, I think, just having heard her name and knowing who she is. But I was not familiar with the Night Watchman before. Like I said, I did not register the fact somehow that this book won the Pulitzer. But I was excited to read it because it's always nice to, even beforehand when you have no idea if you're going to like a book or not, it's always nice to be I'm adding an author of note to my library in my head. You're collecting a new cultural experience.
And a sneak peek for a future book this season. This is not our only Pulitzer Prize winner this season. We have another one coming up.
We're racking them up. And we have not had, and this is not our first Pulitzer Prize winner of the season either.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, definitely.
Because we started with one.
That is true. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, there are no, I was going to say no scrubs on Fiverr Flop, but actually there's a lot of them.
But actually the point of the podcast is that we have scrubs.
And that there are scrubs.
Let's start with our disclaimer real fast. Our judgments come based on the book and characters within it, rather than any real historical figures they may have been based on, which obviously in this book is the case with her grandfather.
And it's a little bit of like a special case because obviously Louise Erdrich's grandfather, whose name I will look up and have for you because I feel like it's important to name him if he's so central to the book. But he's not like a William Shakespeare. Like he's not a figure that people like walking down the street will know. Patrick Gourneau was his name.
Patrick Gourneau. Okay.
So yeah, that definitely affects the way that we view the book and the way that Louise Erdrich went about writing it. But it's, it's an interesting scenario.
There are some other ones. I do name some political figures specifically who we'll get into in the historical accuracy.
Yeah. But I'm not going to like tiptoe around bashing on the evil congressmen.
Yeah, they were not good. We don't like them. And we also don't like them in real life.
So it's fine. And also they've been dead a long time. Yeah. So it's okay.
Okay. So where do you want to start?
Let's get into the division of the two main characters. Because we have two, for all intents and purposes, two point of view characters. There's a sporadic chapter here or there that comes from another point of view. There's one that you will want to bring up. But for all intents and purposes, we have Thomas, who is the titular Night Watchman. And his whole thing is that he is fighting this bill to terminate the formal recognition of...
The bill is House Concurrent Resolution 108.
Which is real.
Which is real. We'll get into that later.
Yes. So Thomas is working at night at the jewel-bearing plant, which also is real. And he's also fighting the termination of the Turtle Mountain Ojibwe tribe, their formal recognition. And he is the character that's based on Patrick Gourneau, Louise Erdrich's real-life grandfather. Mm-hmm. And then the other character is Pixie Parenteau. She's completely fictional, and she is a young girl working at the jewel-bearing plant and supporting her family. And her inciting incident is that her sister has been missing for some time. And so Pixie travels to the city to try and find her.
Looking ahead at your notes a little bit, we have different thoughts on who is the best character in this.
We absolutely do. And that surprises me, but it makes for good conversation.
I loved Thomas. I wanted just his plot. That is what intrigued me in this book. I thought he was such a strongly written character, and I really understood like all of his motivations and what he was doing. Pixie, I thought, could have been a side character.
See, so our opinions are not like completely opposite because I agree with you. Everything you just said about Thomas, I completely agree. Mm-hmm. He was He's really good and strong character, and I think you can tell how tenderly Louise Erdrich feels for him, knowing that he is the stand-in for her grandfather. Mm-hmm. However, I thought Pixie was the best character. I thought she was dynamic. I understood all her motivations. I really enjoyed her characterization of just being like a young woman with a lot on her shoulders. And I thought it was written in a way that I enjoyed. I think, though, when you say she could have been a side character, in that case, I think some of the actual side characters would need to be sidelined or eliminated because there were some that I didn't need.
I don't disagree with you. However, I would suggest their prioritization in the novel be flipped. I think Vera's plot should have been where Pixie's was.
Absolutely. So I did not even, this hit me like a brick when I, closed the book. So essentially, when Pixie goes to find her sister, it's because she's basically been lured to the city with promises of a job making money, and then she's been, drugged and sex trafficked. And that's what's happened to Vera. There are so many other things going on in Pixie's life. You get 1 or 2 point of view chapters with Vera, and it's not until the end that I was like, wait a minute. She saved herself from being sex trafficked, and that was the C plot in the book. And that was insane to me. I do not know why that was the choice being made. My only thing that I can think of there possibly is I think the point of having Thomas and Pixie go, and again, this is just I don't know if this is Louise's intention, this is how I read it. The point of having Thomas and Pixie side by side is that they're both representing fights against different types of injustice.
That's true.
And for me, Thomas is the character that's fighting the large scale, the systematic, he's going up against the legal system and the government. the long-term struggle. And Pixie is fighting the personal, the struggle, like the shorter scale, everything.
It's less seen from a high level.
It's interpersonal, it's your family, it's not affecting the masses, but this is how
it's like the trickle-down effect of these political measures.
Exactly. It's how the systematic affects the individual.
Yes.
So I think those are going side by side, and maybe I know that's the necessity of the Vera plot, and I feel like the Vera plot was drawing a lot out from me, and I appreciated it. I was going to say I loved it, but it was like traumatic, but it was a very well written, and implemented, blah, blah, blah. Because it was so not in the forefront the whole time, that there were so many other things like Pixie's, love life, and the white man that we talked about before, Barnes, is like in love with her and she doesn't like him at all because he's a bad person. Those things I feel like he almost got forefronted more, which was a bit confusing to me.
Let's stick with Pixie for a minute and let's go down her journey for a bit.
Okay.
So she's basically coming to the understanding that, like, no one's heard from her sister in a long time. Something's wrong. There's speculation that she might have had a baby. So she's like, I'm going to go to Minneapolis. And she has never really left Turtle Mountain.
It was so scary when she left. And there's a part where she's, like, taking the bus to Minneapolis. And someone from home, a boxer named Wood Mountain, gets on the bus with her. And he's like, oh, I'm going this way also. And I was so relieved when that happened because I was like, she cannot be trusted by herself. She doesn't know how things work. And that is, and that worry, came to fruition.
Yeah, so she basically, the timeline of events with this whole plot with her, I kind of got confused a bit of what was, going on.
Yeah, but she's there for a couple days.
She's there for a couple days. She basically gets, pulled off the bus by these white guys, and they're like, oh, you're gonna come work with us in this club where you're gonna be in a tank of water dressed as a water ox. And that was...
What's confusing about that? That makes perfect sense.
And it was she was kind of being kidnapped, but also she could kind of leave the club, and I don't know.
Yeah, it was...
But she was also being poisoned from the suit or something.
Yeah. It was a lot of things going on at once. I thought it was nice. I think we lingered on it for a little longer than we needed to. There were just a lot of different things going on at once.
And that kind of feeds into my dislike of this book. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a good jumping point. Eventually, in case you're wondering, Wood Mountain comes and finds her. The club owner overdoses. They get out of there.
Yeah.
But this book had so much going at once, and I thought it was too chaotic. Especially when we're jumping point of views fairly frequently. Thomas and Pixie are the main characters, but they are not the only POV characters.
Mm-hmm. Scattered throughout, there are some other POVs that you only get 2 or 3 times, or maybe even once.
You get Vera, you get Wood Mountain, you get Barnes, you get a couple other characters. And then you get the horses, which was the most upsetting part. No, that's a lie. This was by far not the most upsetting part of this book. There were lots of traumatic things in this book.
This is the most upsetting low stakes part.
Yes, this was incredibly low stakes, but it upset me to read. So basically, there is one part where they're doing something with horses.
It's like a horse race. It's very a normal thing that you would need horses for.
And then one character goes, oh, that horse's vulva is winking. She wants to have sex. And then the chapter ends, and then you get the post-coital POV of the horse being upset about how the sex went. So she kicks the other horse in the stomach, and then he's injured for the rest of the book.
Celebrities, they're just like us.
And this was kind of accumulation of me at so many points of this book going, why was this in here?
Mm-hmm. It just put you over the top.
Yeah, that was the one that really, there was no coming back for me after that.
Mm-hmm.
But there were other points that were the water ox thing. I was kind of why is this in here?
I will say that part, I could not figure out why she was an ox. I get that, she's in a club. They want a lady to, dance sexy under the water.
And they used to have, a mermaid costume.
So I don't know why they didn't have a mermaid costume.
I don't get it.
I don't know why it was an ox.
Yeah, there was a lot. I don't know.
That's my one thing. You're right. I liked this book more than you. Wasn't my favorite of the whole season, but I did like it. So I think for me, once I got to the horse sex chapter, I was just kind of okay.
Oh, and I remember because I texted you and I said, let me know when you get to the horses.
And I was just what? Because I had not gotten to them yet. It's exactly for all of our listeners that have read Gone Girl. When I was reading Gone Girl for the first time, my mom had already read it, and she was waiting for me to get to the twist. So she kept checking on me and being do you know yet? And I would be I don't think so. And then she'd be no, then you don't. So for those me with once I read the chapter with the horses having sex, then I was oh, this is what Erin was talking about. Because there are horses before that. You just are not in the POV of the horses.
Yeah, and that's the most blatant example. But there are lots of other points in this book where I felt we didn't need the POV, we didn't need the plot line. Okay, let's talk about Barnes. I don't even really know what was going on with him because I didn't really care. He gave me the same vibe as Richard in Half of a Yellow Sun as just having like a white POV within this community.
It was not as crucial, I think, as the Richard plotline was.
Agree.
Like, we agreed, even though we disagreed about that book also, we're like, there's a utility to having Richard as a character.
And I didn't understand really what was up with Barnes.
Not
Why
really.
was he in it?
He never really went anywhere. Like, basically, his resolution was this whole book he's in love with Pixie and he's trying to get Pixie and she doesn't like him. Fair, because we don't either. And he finally, Juggy Blue, who I'm going to say is a great character, but is not important enough to be in the synopsis.
Yeah, I was surprised when she was in
Very minor character who's just like a nice old lady. And she's like, you just need to grow up and get another girlfriend. And so he's like, fine. And he just asks out another girl. And then they break up. And he's cured, I guess, of his addiction to Pixie. He doesn't end up doing anything. But I think the reason that we don't need him, first of all, like I said, our two main characters are centering these two different types of struggle against, like you said, the Louise Erdrich's theme is the effect of contact with the white community on the Native American community. Mm-hmm. But also we have two characters who are Pixie's friends that work with her at the jewel-bearing plant, who I think are really good characters. They're very minor. We don't hear a ton from them of consequence. Yeah. But they are nuanced and nice. There's it's the three of them, and one of them has a thing of being jealous of Pixie because boys like her, but Pixie's like, I'm not interested in them, so I don't know why you're taking this out on me. And it's just a small nuanced portrait of how relationships are. And there is that difference in there of one of them being white and coming from a slightly wealthier family, and the other two are Native American and more impoverished. So I think that is enough. And that combined with the wider themes show we don't really need to have Barnes unless the point was kind of pitting Pixie's two suitors against each other narratively, because Wood Mountain, who is Native American, is also enamored with her.
Okay, I loved Wood Mountain, but something that really fucking threw me. When they leave Minneapolis, Pixie takes Vera's baby.
Yes, they couldn't find Vera, but they have the baby.
Eventually, Vera does return home. And Wood Mountain is just so in love with this baby that him and Pixie are a couple, but once Vera comes back and takes the baby, not takes the baby, but the
has her own baby.
The baby is returned to her. He drops Pixie for Vera.
Yeah.
To be with the baby.
And it was so, honestly, I was just like, okay, fine. It was my thing that I hated was that they were like, oh my God, Vera's coming home. Vera's home. And they've all been taking care of the baby, waiting for her to come home. And then Wood Mountain's like, she can't take my baby.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're just a random man.
You're just
what
some
are you talking
guy
about? Yeah. But there's also, this was a girl boss plot that I liked. It was not that important, but basically Pixie starts the book and she's curious about sex. And one of her friends, who is very sexually liberated, is just just don't tell a man that you love him first. And that way you can just try him out. And then if you don't like him, you can just drop him.
Incredible.
Great advice. Pixie wants to sleep with Wood Mountain, but just one time. She's just I just want to see what it's like and then be done with you. Mm-hmm. So then he comes up to her and he's like, hi, I love this baby, so I want to marry your sister. And she's just like, whoa, now I don't have to tell you that I don't like you. Yeah. So it's it worked out for her.
I did like that.
Yeah.
It was just kind of
it was very great, we're just going to wrap this up.
No, not this. When he left for the baby, though. It was I did not enjoy that moment, but I was like, are you kidding me?
It wrapped things up in a very neat bow where you're like, okay, is Vera really in a place to be in a relationship with a man? Because she is very, very traumatized. So you're just maybe if she just keeps him around to take care of the baby,
then
fine.
Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Co-parenting with someone who's
not related to the baby at all. Guy. Well, also, Vera named the baby before she and the baby were separated. Mm-hmm. And then when they went to Minneapolis to get the baby, they didn't know what its name was.
Yeah.
So Wood Mountain gave the baby a name. It's okay, again, you are a guest here, but fine. When Vera comes back, the name that Wood Mountain gave the baby supersedes the one that she picked out.
It was very strange.
Yeah, it's almost exactly like my Aunt Marika, who was the oldest child on my Greek side of the family. and my grandparents named her Kimberly, and all of the old Greek ladies that lived on the street were like, no. Her name is Marika. And so they
just stuck.
So they called her Marika until she was 5. And so finally they had to register her for kindergarten, and they were just like, fine, like we'll change her name to Marika.
That is really funny.
Yeah, so my whole life she's been my Aunt Marika, and I did not know that her name was Kimberly originally until I was like, I don't know, 15.
Well, speaking of names, can I talk about how much I like the title of this book?
The Night Watchman?
Yes, because it has a double meaning that we don't, as readers unfamiliar with the Chippewa culture, don't get until the end.
Okay, please. So, I love double meanings.
I do too. And I think it's done very well. So obviously Thomas's job, he's the night watchman. Like he's the night guard at the jewelry plant.
So literally, he's the night watchman.
So the whole time you're reading it, being like, oh, the title's just about Thomas. Which is kind of why in my head, and this kind of like made me smile a bit when I realized that I was incorrect. The whole time I was kind of like, why, the title's about him, why isn't this just all about him? Mm-hmm. And then at the end, you find that the night watch is actually a funeral ritual. And once Pixie's father dies, She's the night watchman. That she's the night watchman, and the night watch is a ritual for a certain number of nights where you stay up and watch over the body, etc., etc. And I really liked that because I thought it did tie in Pixie being the other main character.
That is very nice. I had a moment with that when it came back around. It's almost like when you're watching a movie and they say the title of the movie and you point at the screen and you're like, the title of the movie. It's the same. Was the same here.
Yeah. I love when that happens.
But it's also, I really enjoyed how they integrated, as if it's like a committee, how Louise Erdrich.
I think we're just saying that because there's so many characters that it's like a they. It's an entity.
So true. How in the book, the plot line about Pixie's father is integrated because he like comes and goes. He's an alcoholic. He's not well. He takes money from the family. He vanishes. And you basically, I don't know if you actually see him like maybe once briefly, but you see the way that he affects the family.
Pixie is like constantly hiding her money. Like she's very on guard with men as well. Like she's very carefully guarded. When
she comes home from work, like she can tell from down the driveway or down the lane to the house if he's home or not.
Yeah.
But then later in the book, like you said, he dies. And then again, you're seeing those emotions and how they affect our central characters. Yes. So I like that the way that you just get the plot line barely, but the characterization really takes over for a lot of the story.
Louise's characterization work is excellent.
Yes, very strong on both counts.
My issue with this book has nothing to do with the characters. It's all just... And this will lead into my next point. The writing style in this book is what I really don't like. I don't like how chaotic and jumpy it is. I don't like the POVs. And I think there's just too much going on plot-wise, which is how it's so drastically different than Future Home of the Living God. Even just structurally, it's incredibly different. Like, that's like one plot focused on very small number of characters. I need a third book as a comparison point. I need to read at least one more book by her.
Okay.
To really... Because the two I read, I feel like
are so different.
Possibly could be such opposite ends of the spectrum, but I need to read something else to know.
Well, now I'm like, should we try and find like what's her most popular book? Should we pick one by random? Like,
I know.
What's the most scientific way to go about it?
Because I'm like, by recognition, it's probably this one. I think this was her biggest award win.
But it won the Pulitzer.
Overall average rating on Storygraph for The Night Watchman is 4.12, whereas for Future Home, it was like 3.6.
Oh.
So I think I'm in the minority.
Okay.
This writing style, I just think, was not for me.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it didn't get in my way when I was reading.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of times...
I felt super hindered by it.
Yeah, I feel stupid sometimes for not having the words to describe a writing style. Even though, like, I'm obviously, like, a voracious reader and have been for a long time, and I just feel like
I have a major in creative writing, and there's, like, not always words for it. Like,
yeah, I just lack that language. But for me, it's sometimes you read books and the prose is so beautiful, it just jumps out at you that you're like, wow, this prose is really beautiful. I've brought up over and over this season that the author that I measure the rest of the pod books against is Isabel Allende. And then,
which is crazy to think about, that her work is a translation that we read. So can you imagine how much more impactful
whoever did that, we should invite them on the pod. Whoever did the translation.
Could you imagine just like how much more impactful it would be in Spanish?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to learn Spanish just to read it, but you're learning it anyway, so you can read it.
I will get back to
you. And then there are people whose prose I think is noticeably bad. We don't need to name names because you know who I think they are. But then I think that otherwise there are just people who I'm like, this is good. It's not getting in under my feet and tripping me up while I'm reading. It's supporting the character work and the plot work. Okay. And that's, I think, where I would put this. I really like the chapters were short. I know it caused problems for you. It kept me moving at a good pace because the topics were so serious. So I liked the motion.
It wasn't the length. It was the switching point of views, I would say, and just the number of plot points. Like, I feel like we're missing half of them in this episode, too.
Yeah, I know. I will say it did take me a little bit longer to get into the swing of things with Thomas's character because at the beginning you're introduced to a lot of his family, and he has his wife, his dad, a couple of kids, and just all of the names were a lot for me. And like I said, I didn't realize Barnes was white for like several chapters, even though that's really crucial. I didn't realize until just now that he had a first name.
Just because there's so many other in rotation.
Yeah, so it takes you a little bit to understand who all of the characters are, especially for Thomas when you meet in the first couple of chapters, you meet all his family at once. Again, I enjoyed that. I thought they were all good characters, even though you only see them in a flash, and them just being there informs a lot for Thomas's character. But I can see what you mean about the jumping and the chaos because it took me a bit to get my bearings in that way.
Yeah, it's just that's the kind of writing style. It's like the too many point of views bouncing around and time jumps not done well are like my big issues with books. So stylistically, this one just wasn't for me. I don't think the prose was bad, but for me as a reader, the plot lines and the number of characters felt too clunky.
And the prose was not enough to lift that up.
Yeah, the prose was not enough to make up for that, except for certain points. Like, I thought when she described what the Night Watch was, I thought that was beautifully done. And there were some sections that, like, really stood out to me, but it wasn't enough to pick up from the rest of
and I'll
my
say that
experience.
I do want to say, because I've said before, like, it wasn't jumping out at me on every page how beautiful the prose was. It did do that at times.
Yeah,
it wasn't at maximum like mode all of the time. Like I said in the Song of Achilles episode, I was like, the Madeline Miller is writing serviceable prose, but I was like but the last line is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's, not everyone is turning it on 100% of the time. And even, like, Paulo Coelho is not, like, being a disaster 100% of the time, even though
you go
a lot of the time.
Most of the time. You go through. Is there anything else you want to cover in this section?
No, I think I'm ready to hop on over to the history.
Okay. So, as we know, Thomas is based on Louise's grandfather, which gives us a uniquely personal element to historical fiction. So for me, that does skew how I see historical accuracy because I'm willing to overlook a lot more if it's like
when it's a personal. And I will say, not to interrupt you immediately, but in the beginning of the book, there was like one page, like a few paragraphs of her just saying, this book is about this bill that was going through the house that was real, and this book is based on my grandfather, who is this person and in real life was the night watchman at the jewel-bearing plant, and Pixie is a completely fictional character. And I was like, thank you for that. Knowing that information really helped me a lot so that I wasn't reading this whole book waiting to look that up at the end. I think that is like, there is more information to look up at the end, but that's what I needed to go through. So I appreciated that she made a point of telling us up front.
Yes, I did too. Okay, so the Turtle Mountain Ojibwe tribe during the Termination Era, which is when this is set. So the Termination Era went from about 1952 to 1968, give or take, when the United States government was ending its obligations to Native tribes. So as they are prone to do, the government was rolling back everything they agreed to do.
Yeah. And basically to put like a finer point on this, which maybe we could have done in the plot section, maybe not. Like we're getting to it now. The point of view of the government was, well, now you're just like normal citizens. Like, isn't that what you want? But then the tribes were like, well, if you dissolve our reservations and our nationality and our tribes, then like we have nothing. Like because of you, we have so little. Yeah. And then if you take away our land, then we have absolutely nothing.
And a big element that's present in this book, but it's not like hugely in our faces throughout. It's kind of more subtly woven in, were the boarding schools for assimilation.
Yes.
This is something I believe Thomas had attended and a couple other characters as well.
That was actually something that I had made note of to bring up that I'm glad you're getting to now. Yeah, well, and now I'm interrupting you every single sentence. But they drop early on that I think this is good, like Louise Erdrich. I enjoy a book, I've said this before, that doesn't talk down to its reader. I like a book that throws out a concept or something without over-explaining it.
She did that in Future Home, too, and I really liked it.
Yes, and lets a reader figure out through context clues. I feel like it is treating your reader like they're smart. Mm-hmm. And she just drops early in that Thomas had gone to a boarding school and then does not elaborate. And a person who knows a little bit about Native American forced assimilation might think like, oh, that's a ding, 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 red flag right there. Mm-hmm. And then a little bit later, she goes on to talk about how it was an assimilationist boarding school. So she, those hints are there. Not everything is really shoved in your face and made too clear. She's doing the right amount of work, I think, in the text.
Yeah, and these schools were a lot of the basis for that government point of view of like, oh, you're citizens now, like you're part of American culture. The idea behind these schools was, quote, kill the Indian, save the man, which is
terrible,
disgusting in a concept and has always chilled me since I learned about it in history class. And they taught that Native cultures were inferior, they cut their hair, they eliminated their language, forced assimilation. Everything you think of was part of that.
Horrible.
So that was a lot of where that government mentality was based in. The jewel plant was real, and most of the women of the tribe were employed there. There was that failed unionization attempt, but they did get wage increases. The unionization attempt was something kind of like hinted at in the book. And then I believe at the end when she kind of does that like historical wrap-up page, she also mentioned something about it in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not important, but it's there, like mentioned, like it's brewing.
Yes. And so, House Concurrent Resolution 108. This is pretty much what kicked off the termination era. And it did pass, unfortunately, August 1st, 1953. It was introduced into the House by Watkins, who was, real-life enemy and also the villain in the book as well. They're, like, specifically pitting against him. Like, you get his biography in one point-of-view chapter. Like,
he's heading the charge.
This was taken from Wikipedia, but I did more research than that. Don't worry.
Well, I can see the little footnote right here.
I know. Passed August 1st, 1953, declared it to be the sense of Congress that it should be policy of the United States government to abolish federal supervision over American Indian tribes as soon as possible and to subject Indians to the same laws, privileges, and responsibilities as other U.S. citizens. So this is what Louise's grandfather were fighting against.
And they do utilize the white character of Barnes in this way to say, like, well, don't you just want to be treated the same as all other citizens? To, like, play that devil's advocate argument. Because on its face, like, that sentence is not the most hateful sentence.
No, but
that's an uninformed view to take when you realize most of our people are just living in this abject poverty. Mm-hmm. And they need what they currently have. And if you take it away, it'll kill people.
All right, and that's what I got for historical accuracy. My research this week wasn't as in-depth, but I feel since so much of this was based on her grandfather...
She gave us a lot of the info up front. You didn't have to go hunting as much.
No, so I did find some college students' PowerPoint about the termination era and then about this novel at the end. So, did read that. It looked like a great presentation.
Fabulous.
Hope you got an A.
All right, should we get into our star calculator?
Yes, and this actually indeed was no longer made by data scientist Ashley. She's been fired.
Yes.
No, she hasn't. She's still our musician.
We have now we have a podcast official enemy, and that enemy is Virginia Tech because they...
Already Grace's enemy because she went to UVA.
Already my enemy because I'm a who, but now it's our official podcast enemy because they revoked Ashley's Drive access and the original star calculator got deleted. So if we want to go back and see what we rated old books, we have to listen to the episodes. It's not in a handy spreadsheet anymore. So, not Gokies on this podcast.
So when we try to do our season wrap-up, it's going to be based on our story graph. Which is more or less accurate to this.
Wait. Last season, did you rank the books by putting them in numerical order from the star calculator?
I did it by star calculator.
Oh, I just vibed them all. Like, not even from Storygraph. I was
just like...
guessed. No, I just put them in order. Like, every time I read one, I put it in the list.
Mine were pod accurate, but anyways. I'll do mine based on Storygraph next time.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
But we're still using the same categories. Historical accuracy, originality, characters, prose, and vibes. I can get started because I have my numbers in and Grace does not yet. So historical accuracy, I gave it a 4. I'm going to take more liberties because it was about her grandfather for a large part of it. But there's also, I couldn't really find that much information about some of the smaller plot stuff like the water ox thing and some of the other things.
Yeah.
So it's like, Originality, I gave it a 3. There's been other novels I've read that are like fighting the U.S. government on something, but not specifically this bill or this concurrent House resolution, these tribes, etc.
Exactly.
Characters, I gave it a 3. I liked them, but there were too many. I couldn't follow them. Prose, I gave it...
We didn't even talk about the random Mormons.
Oh my god, I forgot about the Mormons who they taught to have sex. Yeah. That was a whole plot point. Again, that was like a D-list flop.
Yeah, that one could have been cut super easy. I had defenses for all the other ones, but then I'm like, yeah, they can go. Like the gay people in Pachenko.
That one probably had as much page time as some of Vera's stuff, though, which is insane.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Prose, I gave it a 2 because there were some standout lines, but not as many as I would have liked. Vibes, I gave it a 1 because my reading experience I did not enjoy. So overall, that's a 2.6, and I rated a 2.5. I actually just lowered my rating, I think, from a 2.75 or 3, because the more I sat with this book, the less I liked it.
Yeah, I think reading your book that you liked by Louise Erdrich was not kind to the Night Watchman.
No, but however, it is encouraging me to read more by her.
Okay. Well, for my ranking, for historical accuracy, the first thing I did when I sat down was I put 5, because it seemed like everything was right, and I really appreciate when the history is used with like a deeper meaning behind it. But I did revise that down to 4, just because I think when you're dealing with your own family history, you're gonna have a bit of a bias that is just like, and I don't blame her for that. I'm just saying, like, I think we're not always the people who should be 100% telling our own stories. Like, sometimes there's, a little bit of bias, I don't know how to say it other than bias. Like, there's something there that's just not, like, objective. So, which I don't expect this to be, but just for that, I'm putting a 4, which I normally do anyway. So, nothing wrong there. Originality, 5. I think this is a really good story to tell. I like the way that it's been told. I like the time period. I feel like I don't hear a lot. We don't have a lot of historical fiction that falls in this time period. Characters, 4. Eliminated for point down for having too many, and some of the side ones being superfluous, but I liked the ones that we did have, especially the ones that were centered. The bigger they were, the more that I liked them, really. Which, fair. If you're going to have a bunch of characters, you want to like the ones that are the most important. Prose, 4. I enjoyed it. Like I said, I don't have the language to just say much more than that. It was really beautiful at times, and it was always good.
Sufficient.
Yes. And Vibes, 3. Just because sometimes I did not know what was going on 100% of the time. And so there were times that it took me like a little bit of work to churn through the pages, but that's okay. That's not always a bad thing. So, so that gives me a total of an even 4, which is really nice. And I gave it a 4 on Storygraph.
Oh, wow.
So we're 100%.
So what you're telling me is your calculator's better than Ashley's, even though they're the exact same thing.
Yes, except mine is in the font Playfair display, so it looks nice.
It does look very nice. Can I sidebar quickly on 2 things that I forgot about?
Let's go.
So first thing, and I had read this in some of the reviews when I was doing my research, and it's a statement I agree with. This book for historical fiction read like contemporary.
It did.
Like, it very much read like she was writing it in the 50s.
Yeah.
You want to
be put into the time period, and like, granted, it's easier to do in a time period that's closer to ours than further away. You're getting like the human struggle, and that's like, in a way, it has this like universal quality, like all of that. I agree.
Second thing, I was Googling while you were yapping to find out what's one of her other most popular.
You mean while I was informatively discussing the book?
Yes. So I'm just on Amazon, while The Night Watchman has 21,000 reviews, the next one I could find has 11,000. The Roundhouse, which won the National Book Award.
I was going to say, I feel like that is the one that I had heard of actually over The Night Watchman.
And so I think that will be the one I try to read as my 3rd book in my evaluation.
Okay. Does it say what year The Roundhouse came out? Because definitely prior to The Night Watchman.
It's set in 1988.
So at least after that.
2012.
Okay.
So it was before both of the books I read from her.
Okay. So we'll have to hear about that at a later time. Perhaps in a bonus episode.
Perhaps.
We can go over all of the multiple books that we've read by pod authors. And by we, I mean I'll try to read 1 or 2 by then.
Island of the Sea Woman by Lisa C. was my favorite.
Well, now I feel like I shouldn't duplicate what you've read so we can cast a wide
Okay,
net.
well, you still have to read The Women by Kristen Hanna.
I have I own The Women, and I also own The Rehearsal, which was Eleanor Catton's first book.
Hated that one.
Well,
I forgot I read that one. Oh, God,
well, you didn't like The Luminaries either.
No, I just don't think I like Eleanor Catton.
No, I don't think you do. It's okay. Not everyone is for everyone.
You know, it happens. Not every book is for everyone. This book wasn't for me. Future Home was for me.
Well, we'll see if next week's book is for everyone.
Great segue. What are we reading, Grace?
We're reading She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan.
All right. And until that comes out, make sure you're following us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at @5reflop_pod. And make sure you've subscribed to our Storygraph reading challenge for season 2 to read along with us.
And if you have any book that you think we should read, you should fill out the recommendation form that's in the bio of all of our social medias. And if there's anything in particular that you want to let us know, you can always email us at 5refloppodcast@gmail.com.